Hey, everybody, welcome back to the World from Here. Today, we're going to discuss quantum computing, the carbon emissions, and everything else, and super apps.
Like
And
everything else, the whole world. We're going to solve the world's problems today. So
that's what I actually wanted to talk about. I feel, and you can cut this out if you want to, like we're super delusional. Do you know what I mean?
they are super delusional. Why would we cut that out? The whole world's delusional.
I know. It's just I don't know what to do with it. This weekend I got so overwhelmed because one, I'm taking so many classes and all of them are aligning with the stuff that we're talking about. But it's an like it's just too much information.
Quantum.
Yeah, it's a quantum amount of information that
I
we
was
have to process.
I was talking to your little sister
Yeah,
about math. She's very smart, by the way.
I know. I'm familiar. Yeah.
And she just thought, and I was trying to explain to her quantum. And you're right. It's that we have quantum problems, quantum opportunities, right?
Mhm.
Honestly.
Yeah. We do have too many opportunities. I was thinking about that just for like my age group. It's like I am paralyzed by all of the possibilities that are out there for like careers and stuff. I was like, oh my God, I was like tempted to get like, I don't know, just a very plain job because all I want to do is just like chill out and like hang out with pets, maybe. Like that'd be a really good future for
It,
me. It's
it,
just relaxing.
I think that's this thing is my generation was, oh, you do these things, and it was really pretty linear. And
Yeah.
it was pretty much like you went to university, then you got married, then you had kids, and
Mhm.
you also, oh, this is interesting, you got married to the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Right? There's another one for you. So you got married, you went and got a career. It didn't matter really if you loved the career or not. It was all about, do you make enough money?
Mhm.
And, then you looked at this fake end date somewhere down the road when you're really, really, really old, like 55 or 65, and you're ancient and you have very little longer to live. And that was retirement. And that was it. It was so scripted and laid out. And you know what? It didn't really work out that way completely, but part of it did, honestly. It was
Yeah.
easier. It
And I
was,
feel like, yeah, for my generation, it's like that linear path that you're talking about was presented to us. But in addition to the linear path, they were like, oh, you can't afford a house. You also can't get a job after college, but you're still expected to go to college. And now you're going to be weighed down with all of this like increasing pressure and competition. And we've talked about this before, like the competition by just being connected in the digital age. You can see everybody's skills from all around the world all of the time. There's so much competition out there. Even in like the schooling my little sister's doing, like she has so much work to do and it's just like way past any other generation and like what they had. Like I don't know what your homework was like, but like I feel like the
I
homework
didn't do my
nowadays
homework.
exactly, and you could get away with that. You can't get away with that anymore. It's
I,
terrible.
I think I think it's over. Like that whole comfort zone
Yeah,
you were
I
just
agree.
talking about, that comfort zone of this is my perfect life is over. And I think that's also why during COVID and after, everybody's saying, especially the people that were in the workforce, are saying, I'm not going back to the office. Like that sucked. I don't want to. I want some freedom in my life. I want some breathing space at least to do other things. I don't think people work less. They probably work more. I know I work
They
more at
do work
home.
more. I'm sure, like, I think everybody in our generation is working a lot more.
Yeah. I never
Mhm.
stopped thinking about work. And doing the work. But
Mhm.
I can go out and take a walk with my little dog, with our little dog, with
Yeah.
Stira Mocha. We'll have her on the show. She's off with mom right now. But
Yeah.
but anyway, I think that that's kind of this idea behind remote work, and it is quantum for you guys. It's absolutely quantum. It's so confusing. But I was explaining to Kira what quantum is. is this concept, this real actual functional way that things work, which is we were all taught to think linearly. Even your generation, like you said, you were presented with that, but that's because all my generation knew was to present you with that, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of quantum is that there is no linear path. And we were talking about this. I was talking about this with Kira, and she goes, "That's my theory." And I said, zero is an integer. Like zero is an integer. It is.
I totally know what that means.
Yeah.
I totally remember what integer means. I haven't done math in 3 years,
Right.
but I'm following.
Right.
Yeah.
So what that means is instead of going from point A to point B, or you're able to drop in from any point and create a result, and maybe a better result. And that's so quantum computing skips linear. It skips it. It is able to pop out and pop back in and drop back in. AI kind of works that way too. It works on probabilities and permutation of probabilities. So AI, blockchain, and quantum are all going to merge. That's what's happening right now. And so there's no definition for you guys. Like, there's nothing that you can look back at when your grandparents, my parents, came out of the war, came out of the Great Depression, and it was all about make money, get some profits, do these kinds of things. People value different things now, and the world is different, and the jobs and the opportunities are different. It's not the same. It's just not the same.
But navigating that type of thing is so difficult, right? I feel like there's just so much pressure on like my generation's shoulders to adapt and create this new world, and it's an overwhelming task. And also when it comes to this quantum nonlinear computing, how does that affect the blockchain? Because I've watched videos that say quantum computing can hack the blockchain. So this like forcing.
Listen, I actually got in this argument in 2018 in a small room, and the Prime Minister of Canada was in there, Justin Trudeau.
Wow.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
JT was there. Yeah. And I got in the argument, or the debate, I guess it was more of a debate, with the AI guys and the quantum guys from MIT. I was the blockchain guy, and they're like, quantum's going to hack the blockchain anyway. And I'm like, assuming, and then I'm like, you guys are blowing your own theory, assuming it's linear. So here's
assuming what blockchain is linear?
No, assuming you're thinking linearly with quantum computing. But as soon as you think non-linearly, and I'm going to give you a great example of this. As soon as you think non-linearly, you realize that if I created a blockchain, Blockcerts blockchain, and if I embed, which we have done, the functions and the blocks from the Blockcerts blockchain into a cross-chain model, and I go into the Ethereum blockchain, and the Ethereum blockchain is cross-chained into, say, the Bitcoin blockchain, and you start going cross-chain, then all of a sudden, the quantum is, well, at what point did that crossover happen? You would have to hack every blockchain on the planet, every small blockchain, private blockchain, public blockchain, to transact a different. So what we have is what I would call quantum blocks, quantum information, and it's layered. So it's non-linear. And
right. But can't a quantum computer like intercept that non-linear blockchain that you're talking about? Like,
and intercept it. But here's the problem, and this is the functional reality. This is about reality. And the reality is, even in quantum, and quantum was discovered because of the split slat experiment back in the 50s. Okay. And what it was shooting protons through these slats, and they expected to see a single dot on the other side. What happened instead was it was wavy, and it confused scientists and researchers and physicists. So then they said, well, maybe it's because we're in the room, we're influencing it. So they put cameras in the room. It still happened. So it's called the observer effect. All right.
Okay, so
So let me just
photon.
yeah.
Okay.
So let me finish the question. You said can't hack it. You can't. You cannot hack a point in time.
The blockchain preserves this point in time and it prevents the quantum computer from hacking into it.
You cannot hack a point in time because a point in time is finite. No matter how small it is, it's finite. And what we're thinking about is beyond that point in time, which means, and that's why 0 is an integer, you can't hack 0. What else is there?
Right. So they can't break.
Yeah, it's quite abstract thinking. And I was thinking about it. This is really interesting because this is another thought that popped into my head. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this big push for, okay, return to work, go to an office and everything. And I have something to say to all the CEOs out there that are saying that. What office does your AI work in?
That's a good comeback. That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
That's smart. Potentially one of the smartest members of your team works anywhere, works from anywhere.
You're right, because you're always just communicating online anyways.
Right. So I really think that's what makes it fascinating. I also think you're right. And I completely agree. It's totally freaking overwhelming. It's
really overwhelming. It's just like, I don't know. I get the appeal of like the very chill government job life. Like I really do.
I do too.
I really just want like a dog and just hanging out and just going on walks. Like it'd be so nice.
Well, you should do that because I'm looking forward to the retirement life and the big promise of, hey, just chillax and lay back and let the rest of the world just happen, right?
Yeah, because it's like you go out there and you like create all these correlations with how horrible everything is. Even the concrete sidewalks. Concrete sidewalks are terrible. They're so ugly and they're so disappointing. I hate seeing all those poor little city trees like in those little boxes on the sidewalk. They don't belong there. It's overwhelming. You see it everywhere and it's just impossible to get out of. But I was wondering if you just change your mindset, maybe everything's okay. But
well,
it's not.
It's interesting. This weekend, I went and saw, it was amazing because it also really made me think about quantum and climate change and all of that. Is this show on IMAX called, of course, your sister wanted to go see it. And it's the Amazing Fungi.
I know, Yi, she was telling me about it.
Oh my God.
It was amazing, right?
It's amazing. And that's quantum. That's the thing. And so I think for your generation and even for me, what keeps me going is that what you just said. When I walk down the sidewalk and I think that tree's in a cage. That's so sad. Yeah. That tree's in a cage.
Sad, right?
Why did we cage trees?
We just like encapsulated them in this concrete
prison. Right? And it was quite frightening the amount of rainforest being destroyed was some crazy number, like 1 million acres every 20 seconds or something. It's just unbelievable, and how we're destroying the earth. And it bothered me because just last week I read about in the New Yorker, the great cash for carbon hustle, right?
Yeah, you sent me that article. Do you want to summarize it?
Well, it's just like these guys are selling these carbon credits and doing this. They're not really real. It's just
it's like the airlines that are like, this is how much carbon you're spending. Like you can
do you want to contribute money to our fake paper? It's like it's like fake crypto, right? It's the same thing. It's just fake crypto all over again, only it's these credits with no substance behind it. And
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
And I
I
feel
I
like
do
we're
know
really like,
I
mhm.
do know one company, and I think that's the thing. So, there are companies out there trying to do something about this kind of BS.
Mhm.
And I think your generation could do it too. But for the most part, it's all just about paper profit.
That's what like it always comes down to. They're always prioritizing capital over everything else. Like it's literally capital over humanity and nature and everything. And
It is.
it's this really gross mentality that we've been stuck in for decades and well, hundreds of years actually. Like yeah, that was what my projects have been based around. I am doing like a infographic project right now and it's all about deforestation. So when those acres of rainforest get deforested, like in the boreal forest in Canada, what happens is when the lumber yards come back to plant the trees, because it lost so much biodiversity and it lost like all of the history of the forest, those trees never end up doing well. So remember when you were driving in Colorado and you were like pointing out all the gray trees, like this was years ago, and all of them were dying because of the bug infestation?
Yeah,
If those trees were like a forest with biodiversity instead of like a lumberyard replanting, that type of tree infection would never happen because trees are able to communicate through that root system and through fungi and the
exactly.
biodiversity in their forest to warn each other of these diseases. And like that's what my project was on that I handed in last week. It was about trying to figure out nature's intelligence and they communicate through roots, right? So I literally collected a bunch of images of old drawings of neurons of people's brains
Right.
and compared that visual with like the visual of roots and mycelium and stuff to like try to like explain this type of like harmonious thing that we have with nature.
And if you can do that, that's the idea behind AI is these deep neural networks, right? But
Yeah, and it's like the connection of like information too, right? Like if you could visualize all of the information connecting to one another within an AI system, that'd be like really interesting. And that's what
you
blockchain
can.
model does.
You
It is
can.
the
That's
origin
actually
spelling
called
units.
there's a really cool technology out there called Cipher Queries. And it
Cipher
actually
Queries.
it actually creates from the data and the transactions visualization like at Edward Tufty. I told you about Tufty.
Yeah, we're learning about him in our data visualization.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to figure out how to visualize data, but it's like, it's
Well, and
interesting.
and isn't that fascinating though?
Yeah, it is.
So what's happening now, and this is where it gets exciting. This is where you my theory is this is how your generation can live. You walk down the sidewalk and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm so burned out. And then you look at that little tree encased in its cage and you go, how can I solve that problem? And then your mind starts going. And if we can use the human mind and tie that in with the AI mind and tie that in with the beautiful things like the art of life, all of a sudden life gets pretty boring just sitting there taking care of, a pet. And it gets pretty exciting when you can do that in an environment you're loving it and you can use your brain, right?
Yeah, but like the difficult thing is translating that type of like thought process into a physical manifestation, right? Because it's like I see this poor little tree. How am I going to get the city to change their sidewalks so the tree has more space to grow? You know? Because also I think the advancement of the tech of like technology and stuff nowadays have stifled our outside world. Like if you look at the world outside, and I wanted to complain about this with Elon Musk's invention of the Tesla is like everything outside of like these digital spaces has kind of remained the same. And all of the technologies that are being produced right now are just like reproducing the same thing with no innovation. It's like the Tesla, you would look to that and be like, oh, here's the solution for climate change because it's an electric car. It's still a car, you know? But
Right.
that is not doing anything for climate change or any production. And it's just
Well,
like,
in fact,
it's
if you
really
look at what it takes,
stagnant invention. That's what it
in
is.
fact, if you look at what it takes to build all those batteries, right?
Mm.
The batteries themselves are strip mining to get the minerals.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like these types of delusions that we're creating and show I don't know. It's just like out there in the real world, it takes so much effort to actually translate this type of like philosophy and like digital spaces into the real world. And that's like what really needs it right now for
Well, and
me.
what excites me and actually gets me up every day is the fact
Mhm.
that that challenge, because it is a huge challenge.
But it's a huge challenge. It's just like you need
Hey,
everybody
dude, you
on
got the rest
board
of your
at the
life.
same
You got the rest
I
of your life.
guess.
You
I
know,
guess.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we didn't face challenges in our life and you didn't have it, life would be really freaking boring. And you know what? I've
Yeah.
seen you ski and I've seen you become an expert skier and you face challenges. I mean, you look at that
Right.
cliff. If you're my age, don't jump off a cliff. But
I mean, you jumped off more cliffs than I have, so
yeah, and I blew my knee doing it in
I'll
December
never forget
and
watching you go
you
through that.
laughed.
It was great.
That was
I'm
harsh.
sorry. I mean, like,
That was
it was a great
harsh.
experience for me. I
Yeah.
know that you were in pain afterwards, but it
I
was really
was.
fun.
And so, my pain comes with the territory, whatever, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And we're not going to solve all the world problems through the super app, which is X, which is the other topic we have on for
Well,
today.
you're not going to solve all the world's problems, but I think, bring this back together about what quantum is, about solving the world problems, and bring this idea together. To me, the way the internet is now, it was great when it started. And
Yeah.
then in 2008, this guy who founded GNU, I talked about it in our webinar, which is up on the world from here now.
Mhm.
This guy said cloud was a trap. Cloud is a trap in 2008, right? Even Larry
Yeah.
Ellison from Oracle said cloud is a trap. And so
Mhm.
I look at what has happened and is happening and continues to happen on the internet and cloud as deforestation, right? It's
Yeah.
taking away the free open spaces, and this structure is trying to build little boxes around all the trees, like
But
concrete prisons around the trees. And so, you know, the cool part about AI and emerging and super app, if you don't give it to a centralized company, if you give it to the actual people who act like the fungi and start consuming this information and creating these root systems, you build
yeah.
a neural network, you build a collectivity, you build a new digital age. And that digital age, and think about this, how do you change a city's mind? By the people who live in the city, who actually
Yeah.
create that city's purpose and elect those officials and change that mindset. That's how you change a city's mind. That's how you say this needs to be architected differently. That's how you do it.
Yeah. Right. So it's all about gathering people together because it's like,
On
it's
it,
that whole phrase like community beats capitalism.
community beats capital. It's that neural network effect. And
Yeah.
where you run into the problem, is this idea of consolidation and greed. And
Mhm.
consolidation of power and greed and fear, what's in it for me is toxic. It's it's the
Yeah.
it's the poison that kills creativity. It's
Mhm.
and as soon as you start getting it's natural for humans to be afraid. How am I going to eat tomorrow? That's our survival instinct. How am I? But do we really need to create more centralized billionaires in the world?
Um,
Right?
we really don't. We need a distribution of wealth.
We need
Yeah.
not just wealth. We need a distribution of freedom and opportunity and integration for a more sustainable future. And I believe that these three elements in the internet can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blockchain, why? Because everybody gets to hold their private public keys. So all of a sudden you get to lock up your data, start locking up your data. Guess what, dude? You
Yeah.
in the webinar also you'll hear me talk about this right at the very beginning. It says, I know you don't watch my webinars, but if you ever did,
I'll try. I'll try to put in the time. I'm
No,
so
you
busy.
won't. No, you won't. But that's cool. But this woman from MIT, this professor, and a couple others spent 29 years saying data is everybody's business, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's true, but they just study the big data companies like banks and stuff like that. But if you extend that and say, well, if data is everybody's business, and you take the data away, AI doesn't work. Google sure as hell doesn't work. Microsoft doesn't work. Like Salesforcecom, none of these things work unless you actually freely give your data away. So stop doing that. So that's blockchain,
Yeah.
public-private keys. Lock it down. All it is numbers, and you can't see what I'm doing. I love that. You know, now you come to me and I'll tell you if you can use my data instead of the other way around. They don't have to ask right now. They just, Figma, Adobe bought Figma.
I'm using. I know that has been a huge issue with me and my design.
Read they just published their new license agreement.
Ooh, you know what I wanted to mention too? When I'm using Adobe Photoshop, there's this content aware feature. And I have to, if I want to use this feature, I have to consent to them taking all of my Photoshop files and using it in their AI. Which is so, like, it was so crazy to see this notification that was like, this feature that's right here, you have to consent to me taking
That's right.
all of your.
So remember we talked about origin of thought last time? Everything you create, everything you do is an origin of thought. So here's how you do it. Let me tell you how you protect that. These guys aren't going to stop doing that. But what you can do, in fact, you should be using our platform to do it, because this is how it's designed, is you do your work, just like we're logging on right here on Blockcerts. And do you know that every 5 minutes, and we're at 26 minutes, so we're going to have to cut this off, but every 5 minutes right now, Blockcerts is marking this on the blockchain. Every 5 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. So now, this video and anything you do, when you're on, so if you open up Adobe and you're drawing and you're doing all of that stuff, and you're actually uploading it to your secure virtual space, you have a little mini license agreement. Then if that shows up in AI, you go back and under traditional laws, you say, wait a minute, you stole my intellectual property. Take it down. And the laws will force them to back it out. And here's their problem. Once they put it in the AI, and this is true for any AI, if they put it in the AI, and this is going to be a movement, so everybody listen to this. The only way to get it to forget is to purge the AI, the entire AI, because it gets interwoven. So there are very powerful ways that people know how this actually works to control intellectual property.
But aren't you worried about the permanence of that type of system on the blockchain? Like that type of, because there's like that argument of, what's it called? It's like when YouTubers use other people's content to comment on it and then it gets taken down for copyright laws. And it's like fair use, right? So when it comes to like thoughts and stuff, generally people across the board are inspired by other people's thoughts or other people's creation. And like in creative industries, everybody's kind of like passively communicating with everybody's work, right? So if you're like going and attacking other people's like production that was inspired by your thought, I don't know what I'm getting at, but like you kind of hear what I'm trying to say.
These are very important concepts, but let's look at how big and actually successful the open source community became in code.
But the open source community, it's also interesting. My friend, he was mentioning that the open source like communities are actually perpetuated by the companies, right? Like open source is not sustainable and they get people to do free work and then they get a profit off of that free work people do.
So I solved that problem too.
Oh, okay.
Because if you create this open source environment, and then what we did on the blockchain is we created this thing called ink. So it's just like ink on paper, but it's like little pixels. And you actually have that ink attached to it. Then every open source developer, every designer, everybody that does that can share their information. They're motivated to do it. because they get a little bit of the reward. So what happens is all that profit that's currently centralized in those big companies is distributed for everybody. You're motivated to do more creativity, and you're motivated to share more because it's not just being stolen, you're getting ripped off. Like, that's what the big problem is in the music industry, right?
Yeah. So does Inc. give credit to the people who are contributing to the open source material? And do
Yes.
they get profit from that? Or is it
Yes.
like
Yes.
accumulated?
You get
Okay.
you get to live off of your ingenuity. And
Mm-hmm.
even if you're doing it as a hobby, it's just ticking away and it's giving you that, and it's not going to some centralized company. So when you're training the AI here,
Yeah.
it's measuring that for you, and they're like, hey, guess what, this many people used your stuff and it's great, thanks for contributing, and oh, by the way, here's some money, go buy a coffee, or go buy a house.
Right. Right. So you can just like accumulate all of the actual work that you're doing
you,
into profit, and you always get credit for what you're
you
contributing.
always get credit for it from the origin of your thought, and it distributes
Yeah.
it, so it motivates creativity and collaboration and the neural network and all of that stuff, and it tracks who started it.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's pretty amazing technology.
And we're launching that. I'm excited, but we got to stop. I'm launching that whole platform at Hong Kong FinTech. So next time I talk to you, I'm going to talk to you from Asia somewhere,
From
Hong
Hong
Kong,
Kong.
most
Yeah.
likely Hong Kong.
It's gonna be sick.
I wish you were coming with me.
Me too, but hopefully I end up over in Asia sometime.
Pretty soon. Singapore, dude.
Yeah. I hope. We'll see.
Hey, this has been fun. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. It was kind of all over the place, but I think we'll get it organized. We're trying to cover a lot of ideas, but you know what? It's okay.
You know what?
We
That's
had
kind of
some
how we roll.
Yeah, just all over the place, incomplete sentences. I'm praying people could follow along.
It's the quantum. That's how life is.
Yeah, we're speaking non-linear.
We're speaking non-linear. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, dude, I love you. And we love the world, and we love the planet, and it's all about it is, and we love what we do here. And so join the love. I guess I'm gonna say it. Subscribe, jump in.
Yeah. Oh, also,
What? Oh, I know I'm dorky. I mean, I saw that.
Who was watching our podcast? You know what I mean? I don't get it. Like you said that there's what, 27 views last time? Like,
I don't know. There was lots more. I think we're streaming. Last time I looked, there was almost 65.
65? That's crazy.
Killing it. We're killing it. We're social media giants.
Oh my God, I know. Look at our really great setups. Like, okay. Well, thank you for joining us. You don't have to do anything.
You don't have to do anything. Do whatever is in your heart.
Go for a walk. Hang out with your dog.
That's right.